Masala Polin is Schechter Westchester's adult journey to Poland, offering parents and community members a chance to see and experience the same sites our 12th graders visit each year, and this year's trip was powerful. We began with a visit to Warsaw's Gęsia Street Cemetery, seeing monuments to the size and diversity of Warsaw's pre-war Jewish community, as well as understanding how the cemetery operated during the Warsaw Ghetto period, and even how a sewer entrance in the cemetery could be a gate to freedom. We also visited fragments of the ghetto wall and the Umschlagplatz, or deportation square, from which over 300,000 Jews from the Warsaw Ghetto were deported on cattle cars to the Treblinka death camp. We completed our visit to Warsaw with stops at Mila 18, site of the Ghetto Uprising headquarters bunker, and the Rappaport Monument to the heroism of the fighters and to the victims of the Shoah. From Warsaw, we traveled to Lublin to study in the hallowed halls of Yeshivat Chochmei Lublin, and a short drive away to see the gas chambers, plundered shoes, barracks, and crematoria of the Majdanek concentration and death camp. Our second day began with Shacharit in the beautifully restored synagogue of Dobrova Tarnowska, and a visit to the Bima, all that remains of the great synagogue of Tarnow. A short drive away, we memorialized the Jews of Tarnow, especially the children, thousands of whom were murdered in the now silent forest of Szpilitovska Gora. From there, it was on to Krakow, once the center of all Polish and indeed all Ashkenazi Jewry. We visited synagogues and marketplaces and the oldest Jewish cemetery in Poland, reveling in the amazing Jewish world that existed here. We also walked in the footsteps of Krakow Jewry, across a bridge to the Nazi-era Podgorsza Ghetto, where we saw a fragment of the wall that surrounded the ghetto, and ultimately we continued on to the site of Płaszów, a murderous work camp on the outskirts of Krakow. Today, it is only open, grassy fields and trees. That evening, we connected with the modern Jewish community in Krakow at the Krakow JCC, witnessing the rebirth of the Jewish community, speaking with both young members and with survivors like Pani Zosha, as well as hearing testimony from a woman honored by Yad Vashem as righteous among the nations. Day 3 began with Shacharit at the one surviving shtibel of Auschwitz, better known to the world by its German name, Auschwitz. At Auschwitz I, we entered under the ominous Arbeit macht frei gate and toured the former barracks, converted into a museum to explain this horrific place of murder and dehumanization. In a new exhibit created by Yad Vashem, we were even able to look up the names of family members among the more than 4 million Shoah victims recorded by Yad Vashem. We also visited the gas chamber, walking through the very room where thousands and thousands were murdered at Auschwitz I, before the gas chambers and crematoria of Auschwitz II Birkenau became operational. After a short break, we traveled the 3 kilometers to Birkenau, entering through the iconic brick archway. Over 1 million men, women, and children were murdered here, the overwhelming majority of them Jewish. We walked the length and breadth of Birkenau, along the ramp where trains arrived and selections were made, past rows and rows of barracks with only their chimneys remaining, inside the few remaining barracks and latrines, trying to understand how anyone survived, and on to Canada, where the remains of plundered Jewish property are embedded in the ground to this day. In the sauna, we saw where those fortunate enough to be selected for work were transformed from individuals into prisoners, from human beings into tattooed numbers. And on our way out, we passed again by the silent remains of the gas chamber and crematoria buildings, dynamited by the Nazis to hide the evidence of their crimes, but we learned how they operated and bore witness to their victims, and we will not remain silent. On Masala Polin, we saw 800 years of Jewish history in Poland. We became second-generation witnesses to the horrors of the Shoah, and we connected with the hopeful rebirth of the Jewish community in Poland today. Thank you to all of our participants for making Masala Polin the meaningful experience that it was. Toda.